do this. All right, so last week, guys, we talked about...
What is this section called?
Quadratic formula.
How you spell that?
It's on the top of the sheet I just gave you. Quadratic.
Why you gotta do it work?
No one like the Pythagorean.
Wait, last week... No, not quite. All right, so last week we looked at equations like this, yes? Yes. And to solve it for x, to find out what x equals, what did we do?
We would want me to add 3.
So what? How do you know what to do? How do you know what order to do it in?
You go back.
Sim maps.
Sat map, you go backwards PEMDAS, right? So you add 3 first, remembering that parentheses are last, right? Let me just put my little sat map here.
Square root it. Cancel it out.
Yep.
No, you don't have to. This is just recapping, kind of getting you back into thinking what we were doing last week. And then, you're right, we square root. What's the square root of 9?
3.
3.
What?
Positive or negative 3.
Positive or negative 3. And then we talked about, and this is going to be really important for today's lesson, we talked about how we kind of split it up into 2 answers. Keep it right where? All the way up to the very top. That's the top.
X equals 2, x equals negative 4.
We talked about how we split it into a positive 3 and a negative 3 so that we get our 2 answers.
We could write it as x equals plus minus 3 plus 1, right?
Minus 1. Because you got to subtract 1. Yeah. All right, do we remember doing this last week?
Yes.
All right, I'll give you a second to copy up, guys. All right, so I told you, boys and girls, when you see x only one time in the equation, that is an indication to you that you can SAD map your way out of it, right? We talked about that. So my question is, what if I end up with something like this? How could I solve that for x?
We're going to have to get 5 and x together.
I heard combine the x squared and the 5x, but we can't do that because they're not what? Like terms. This one's got a different exponent on it. I heard move the 6 over, which I would probably start with, right? Okay, so I heard move 6, and that's probably where I would start if I didn't know what to do, is moving the 6 over, but that would still leave me with x squared plus 5x equals negative 6.
X times x.
Can't do that. I'm kind of setting you up here because you don't know how to solve this.
No, because
Okay.
you can't do adding and stuff because you have
Can't stop.
sad math.
Right.
Yeah.
So Q, no, we have to find what x equals.
You can't
So you multiply.
So what we're going to do, no, you can't. I'm fixing to show you how.
So this one we can start taking notes.
Yes, this is the quadratic formula. No. Yeah, let me tell you what you're going to do. You're going to use what we call the quadratic formula. Okay? If you look, okay. There's a couple of stipulations before we use the quadratic formula, but I want you to understand what it's doing. The quadratic formula is allowing us to solve it for x. It's telling us what x equals. Will you pass that back to DeAndre, please? Darion.
Andre needs 2 of these sheets.
And he needs 2 of those also, yeah. All right. So if you look at the sheet, if you look at the sheet, it looks like this, guys. Okay, so then let's go over here for just a second. Ax squared plus bx plus c is standard form of a quadratic equation, okay? Very important. Standard form. Okay, a and b are coefficients. They do not include the variable, and b is the constant.
Hold up a second.
Okay.
And then what's C?
All right, C is your constant. A is always hooked to the x squared, B is always hooked to the x, and C is always the number by itself. Okay? For example, look, what is A?
2.
So we got the formula.
What is B? Yes.
3.
What is C?
8. 1.
Negative 1. You got to take those signs with it, okay? I'm not carrying the x with it. It's only the coefficient in front. What's wrong? Let's look at another one.
Still here. That's what counts.
Look at this one. This one's tricky. What is A?
B.
1. Good job, y'all, because you can always put an imaginary 1 in front, right? Think before you answer this one, what is B?
4.
4. 0.
0. C is what's 4, because look, I could rewrite this as x squared plus 0x plus 4.
No.
Yes.
What's the whole point?
Because you got to be able to identify A, B, and C so we can use the quadratic formula.
Right.
Go with me now? Let's do one more. Actually, what is A?
2. B.
What is B? Negative 3. Make sure you pull the sign with it, okay? And what is C?
0.
All right, so earlier we were looking at a quadratic. Somebody, Darian, tell me what the equation of that quadratic was at the very beginning.
Looking at me.
All right, tell me what that very first quadratic was that I gave you. X squared plus 5x plus 6 equals 0. Okay, looking at this one, tell me what is A?
X. 1.
1. What is B? And what is C?
6.
6. All right. Shh. Now, here's your first hint. When you're solving with the quadratic formula, and this is written on your sheet, you must make sure it equals 0 before you start, okay? So always make sure. You writing this down, Darian?
I always do.
Never happened.
And we're going to do a couple that they don't equal 0, and we'll have to manipulate it a little bit to make it equal 0. But for right now, we're going to start out easy with one that already equals 0. Hold up a second. Quadratics. Shh, shh, shh. All right, so we make sure it equals 0. Now, this only works when I have this exponent in here hooked to x of 2. Okay? To solve that for x, and we already talked about, we have no earthly idea how we'd solve that for x, right? Because x is in there more than one time. I can't just side map my way out of it. So I'm going to use this equation. Opposite b plus or minus the square root of, y'all ready? This is long. B squared minus 4ac all over 2a.
Wait.
Okay, hold on.
You be doing some crazy stuff.
Girl, why are you late?
So we're gonna plug in B, which will be 5.
Correct, Tyler.
Hold on, just a couple of things to note before we start plugging and chugging. Shh. All of this together is under the radical. Shh, Darian, I need you to focus. All right, b squared minus 4ac is all under the radical, okay? And everything, this whole thing gets divided by 2a. Okay? Notice your plus or minus sign. That tells me I'm going to get how many answers? 2. Yes? Okay. This becomes a plug and chug game. And if you look at the sheet that I gave you, this one, and this is just for you to reference, we're going to actually use the other one to plug into. Once it equals 0, look, coordinate all the A's. I put a rectangle around them so that you could find them. All the B's go in the ovals, and the C is the heart. Okay? You literally are just plugging in here. So let's work through this one and see what happens. Y'all ready?
No, it's complicated.
It is complicated, but as long as you go in the right order, you're good. And I'm going to go to another sheet.
Would you multiply?
4 times A times C? Yes. Yes.
All of them multiply.
Yeah. If it's not indicated, it's multiplication. All right. So X equals. So right now, let's just plug in what we know. We wrote A, B, and C out up here at the top. Yes?
Yeah.
Yep, we did. A is 1, B is 5, and C is 6.
Right.
1, 5, and 6. Remember, if this didn't equal what to start with, this wouldn't work.
0.
0. Ah,
Super smart.
what happened? Let's plug in. X equals, look what I'm doing. What is B?
5.
5. So I got opposite of B.
So negative 5?
Yep. Plus or minus. Look what I got under this square root. I'm going to put my whole square root. B squared minus 4, and a lot of you have asked, this is a multiply here, times A,
1.
what is C? 6, all over, guys, 2A.
I apologize.
Now we just solve it.
Okay? Now we're just going to go through, but now we're not STAD mapping anymore. We're simplifying, so we're PEMDAS. Okay? So, that's right. All right, all we did was plug in. So look at this. Let me show you this sheet. Lexi. Okay. Look at this one. Okay? This is the one that you got 4 on each side and you got 2 papers of. You see the one I'm talking about? Yep, you got 4 on the front and 4 on the back. So let me show you. Yep, they're all the same because you're going to do, it's setting you up to do 16 problems that way. What is your A?
We don't finish them classes this summer.
What's your A? What A did we have just now? 1?
Yeah.
B?
5.
C?
6.
So we literally, where there was a B, we put 5. 5. A is 1. C is 6. A is 1. You see it now? Okay. Yes, I do want you to do it. I do want you to use this sheet because this is how you're going to do your homework. Okay? All right, so does everybody see where we plugged in and how we plugged in here?
We copy this on our sheet, right?
Yes, copy this for number 1 on your sheet. All right. Now, this sheet is going to help you because it's going to take you through the right order you need to solve, and hopefully it's going to get you used to doing that, okay? So what we're going to do, let's go down to the next. Ooh. Let's do this. And let's go down.
Now the answer to one of the X's is 2.
Yeah.
Right, Miss Vicky?
How you know that?
Because there's nothing else you can do on the bottom.
And 2 times 1 on the bottom. That's 2.
Cut.
Let me pause this a second so I can get my sheet set back up.
Pause.
All right. Negative 5 is negative 5, yes? Now look at the radical, okay? It's telling you to do everything under the radical. So in other words, what is 5 squared
25.
minus 4 times 1 times 6 is,
16. 24.
does that confuse anybody?
No.
Where are you lost?
Nowhere.
All right, do you see where the 5 squared came from?
Yeah.
Oh, 5 times 5, yeah.
Yeah. And then minus 4 times 1 times 6 is 24. Okay? So under the radical, what is 25 minus 24? 1.
That's it?
Look at the bottom. I still got a bottom piece. What's 2 times 1? 2.
2.
Yes, what's your
Oh,
question?
you going too fast now.
Okay. I'll stop for just. All right. So now look what happens with this. Look what happens with this expression. Okay, this equation. It's breaking it up into two different things. One of them is a plus and one of them is a minus. We've been doing that. That shouldn't be too confusing for anybody, right?
Nope.
The number in front stays. What's the square root of 1?
2 and negative 3.
What times itself twice gives you 1? 1 over 2.
But let's say, what if it's not a whole number? Or not a,
You would leave it as a radical. Or you might have to break it down like we did before. Who's confused on that step?
I got it.
Because it's plus or minus. Remember that
you both
one
answered
where we
something.
split it up, 1 +3, 1 -3 in the beginning? Same thing. Yes, sir. Yes.
What was you talking about now when you said?
All right, focus, guys. Let's finish this one up. Y'all seem very talkative today, I guess, with the...
Negative 5 plus 1 equals negative 4.
All right, so that's right. Do the top first. So -5 plus 1
Negative 4
is -4 over 2,
Negative 2.
which is -2. So that's one of my answers.
No.
But the other one is -5 minus 1.
You add it, so it'd be negative 6.
That's right.
Negative 3.
why did I put negative 1?
Because you didn't do the thingy, bro.
All right. Let's say I have an equation that looks like this.
I cannot.
You can't see that? Ah, I'm sorry.
It's x squared plus 3x.
X squared. Guys,
Yes.
I'm going to be forced to ask some of you to walk out of the classroom if you cannot keep it down.
A is going to be 1.
All right, but first, what do you have to do first? Remember I told you that
You gotta make it 0.
you got to make it
Minus
0. -2. Good job. Okay? If it doesn't equal 0 before you start, you cannot do it.
It ain't gonna work.
Okay?
So it'd just be x2 plus 3x minus 2.
X squared plus 3x equals -2. Ah! I'm sorry. I'm rewriting.
What did you do?
So it
I don't know.
would be x2.
Hold on. There you go.
Oh, that's simple.
Okay? You just move everything around so that it equals 0.
Will it ever
Okay?
get much harder than that, really?
Moving 1 or 2 terms, that's it. Okay? You just got to make one side 0. You got to move everything away from one side. All right? Now looking at this, what is A?
1.
1. What is B? What is C? Could you still figure that out if I mix that order up? In other words, if I said 3x minus 2 plus x squared equals 0, could you?
Yeah, you still can figure it out.
You still can figure, it's the same thing. Do we all agree? The A is what's hooked to the x squared, the B is what's hooked to the x, and the C is the constant, okay? All right. Y'all ready to plug and chug?
Chug.
A is 1, B is 3, C is -2. So we're going to put it in exactly this way, okay?
Okay, Whisper.
A is 1, C is -2, A is 1.
Hurt my feelings.
Okay, I'll stop a second.
X is -3.
I'm making it complicated?
17 doesn't have to equal the square root, so what is it?
Okay, but that's what I wanted to show you is what happens if it doesn't. All right, so I got -3 here. Does everybody agree?
Yes.
All right, under the radical, that's why it's circled here, so you see that it's all that together. So 3 to the second power is 9 minus, what's 4 times 1?
Negative 4.
Times -2.
It would be 8.
Would it be negative 4? Because it has the minus 4 in there.
Yes, so well, I'm just showing you that here, so now you got minus and negative, which is,
Put a plus sign.
17.
y'all like same change.
Yes.
So it's 17. Is anybody lost so far?
Yes, I thought it would be, wait, what?
Because this 2 here is negative.
No.
Right?
So negative.
So you got minus a negative. You with me? All right. So now what I need to look at is that square root of 17. Okay? Does 17 have a square root?
No.
No. Can you break it up any?
No.
No, you can't. And by break it up, that's where I'm talking about doing one of them perfect squares with the orange numbers behind me. So that is your answer. You can't do anything. So it's negative 3 plus the square root of 17 over 2, or negative 3 minus the square root of 17 over 2. That is your answer. Okay? The only time you're going to go down further is when that is a perfect square, like we did in the first one.
You make it like the square root of 9.
Oh, that's easy to do.
Let's say if that under the radical had been 18, so if it was negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 18 over 2, then I would want to break that 18 out. What's the perfect square that goes into it? 9 and what? So I got negative 3 plus or minus 9 and 2, right?
The regular square root of 9 plus the square root of
I still
So just leave it like that.
just leave it like that, yep.
Damn, we had a perfect square.
Only time you're going to have just exact numbers is if it was a perfect square with no radical. Yeah. Yes. All right. Shh. Yes, ma'am.